Okay, so for today, we are going to discuss production losses in a job order cost system. So these production losses come in the form of defective units and spoiled units. So the similarity between the two is that they both of these units, both types of units did not meet the quality standards of the company. The difference is that a defective unit can be economically reworked and then later on be sold as good units. But spoiled units cannot be economically reworked, or it is impossible to rework these units, and therefore the company has no choice but to sell these units as scrap, diba? For a price lower than its cost. So whenever we incur losses in a job order system, job order cost system, diba? um, the main question is who will shoulder the loss, diba? So the loss will be shouldered by the party who is at fault, okay? So if it is the company's fault, meaning it is a normal occurrence in their production process, therefore the loss will be recorded as part of their actual factory overhead. But if it is the customer's fault because they change the specification of the order after you have started working on it. And therefore, the loss will be added to the cost of the job. Okay? So for further information, you must read the handout because the handout is pretty comprehensive and it's very easy to understand. So for the remaining time, I will be answering the problems included in the handout I have uploaded in the UST Cloud Campus. We'll start with problem 2 first. Okay? So denim company manufactures matches per the design and specifications of its customers and accordingly uses the job order cost system. In March 2021, it finished 50,000 pieces for a customer at a cost of zero point 0.5 per unit for direct materials, zero point 0.4 per unit for direct labor. Factory overhead is applied at 100% of direct labor. The production incurred 500 defective units due to an error in the specifications made by the customer, and that had to be reworked at a cost of zero point 0.1 per unit, in addition to the predetermined manufacturing overhead. Denim Company did not include the cost of rework as part of the predetermined overhead rate. So the question, if the customer is billed at 30% above cost, how much is the billing price? Okay? So the first thing we're going to do here, so let us start answering this problem. This is problem 2. So the first thing we're going to do is to compute for the total cost of the job. Okay? So we have direct material, zero point 0.5, and then we have direct labor for 0.4, and then for our factory overhead, factory overhead, it is equal to 100% of direct labor, so that is equal to zero point 0.4. So in this case, since it is not the since it was specifically mentioned in the problem that the predetermined overhead rate does not include the estimated rework cost. Diba? So, that is okay because in this case, it is the customer's fault. Diba? Sinabi naman dyan that um, due to an error in the specification made by the customer. And therefore, we don't have to, or we can ignore this statement that the company did not include the cost of rework as part of the predetermined overhead rate because it is okay since the customer will shoulder the loss. Okay? So the total cost of each unit is equal to 1.3. Okay? And then, syempre, we have manufactured 50,000 pieces. So, 50,000 pieces. Therefore, the total cost is now at 1.3 times 50,000, that is equal to 65,000 pesos. Okay? So, that is the total cost of the job before the rework. Now, for the rework cost, since we have to rework, how we have to compute for the total rework cost. Okay? So the rework cost is equal to 0.1 per unit, and we have to rework units reworked. We have to rework 500 defective units. Oops, I'm sorry. We have to rework 500 defective units, and therefore the total rework cost is equal to 50. Okay? So this rework cost will be added to the total cost of job number of this job, di ba? Hindi naman binanggit ko ano yung job number niya. So we have to add the rework cost, okay? Which is equal to 50. So after the rework, the total cost of this job is now equal to sorry. Is now equal to 65,050. Okay? Now, this is not yet the final answer because we are asked for the billing price, diba? So usually, it depends on the contract, diba, that we've made with our customer. Sometimes, we bill the customer at a cost plus basis, meaning cost plus a certain markup, diba? So sometimes naman, we already set the contract price, and then syempre we have to do our best so that our cost will not exceed the contract price that we have set, no? So in this case, meron tayong markup which is equal to 30% above cost, diba? 30% above cost. So to compute for the billed price or billing price, we will multiply 65,000 by 1.3. So the billing price is now equal to the billing price is equal to 84,565. Okay? So let us prepare the journal entries for the transactions, no? So to record the cost of the job. So our entry, of course, is to debit work in process for the total, which is equal to 65,000. And then we have to credit raw materials inventory. So to compute, we have 50,000 units multiplied by 0.5. This is equal to 25,000. Then we have to credit wages. So we have 0.4 times 50,000 units. And then, of course, we have to credit factory overhead control. So we have 0.4 multiplied by 50,000 units as well. So this is our entry to record the cost of the job. Okay? And then, syempre, the next entry is to record the rework. Diba? Rework cost. So to record the rework cost, again, since it is the customer's fault rather. It is the customer's fault, diba? The rework cost will be added to the total cost of the job. So we have debit work in process, 50,000. And then we have to credit various accounts because the problem did not specifically mention which account was which is needed in order to rework the defective units. Is it materials, overhead, or labor? So we have to credit various accounts for 50 as well. Then of course, we have to record the transfer to finished goods. So our entry for this is to debit finished goods inventory amounting to 65,050, and then of course we'll credit the work in process account amounting to 65,050 as well. Okay? Now, to record the sale, of the units, Okay? To record the sale of the units, our entry will be to debit accounts receivable amounting to 84,565 and to credit sales for the same amount. Okay? And then, since we are assuming the use of the perpetual inventory system, another entry is needed to debit CGS 65,050 and to credit finished goods inventory for the same amount, 65,050. Okay? So now, assuming you are asked for the cost per unit, diba? Assuming you are asked for the cost per completed units, what we're going to do here is we are going to divide, cost per completed unit. Okay? So, our total cost of 65,050 will be divided by 50,000 units. Diba? Why 50,000? Because as mentioned earlier, since we have already reworked the defective units, they can be sold as good units again. So we will still deliver these defective units to our customer. Okay? So the cost per completed unit is now at 1.301. Okay? So that is the answer for problem 2. Okay? So I have skipped problem 1 because it is a little bit confusing kasi meron siyang defective unit and then meron din siyang spoilage. So sabay. So we will answer problem 1 last para hindi kayo masyadong malito. Okay? Sige. So now we'll proceed with problem 3. Okay? So for problem 3, let us read the problem. Jogger Inc. manufactures custom wood products. During the current period, an order for 200 workbenches was begun on job number 2009. After the job was completed, the benches were inspected and 10 units were determined to be defective. The customer has agreed to accept the order with only 190 units instead of the quantity originally ordered. The spoiled units can be sold as seconds for 30 each. Spoiled goods are kept in a separate inventory account from finished goods. The total cost charged to job number 2009 are as follows. So we have materials, labor, and overhead for a total cost of 30,000. Then, custom jobs are marked up 30% on cost. Okay? So, sige. So what are the questions? Assuming that the defective units were the result of an internal failure, so an employee error or a machine failure, therefore chargeable to all production, what is the total cost of the good units delivered to customer, and for how much was the customer billed? Okay? And then for letter B, assuming that the defective units were the result of a change in design specifications by the customer after the units were completed, what is the cost per good unit delivered to the customer, and for how much was the customer billed? Okay? So, for now, problem 3, medyo hindi na confusing, pero during the first part kasi, in the first part, nilagay niya doon defective. But upon reading the problem further, di ba, sabi dyan, the spoiled units daw will be sold as seconds for 30 pesos each. So therefore, we have a spoilage for problem 3 and not defective units. Okay? So same, oops. Yeah. So same, same steps, diba? Actually, in this problem, no need to compute for the total cost of the job kasi it is already given to us, diba? Total cost of job 2009. So, total cost of job 2009 is equal to 30,000. Okay? Now, what are we going to do? So, we start with the first assumption, diba? It is an internal failure or company's fault. So again, if it is an internal failure, diba? It is the company who will suffer the loss, who will record the loss. So now, what are we going to do, diba? So since it is an internal failure, the total cost of job 2009, which is 30,000, will be reduced by um, the total cost of the 50 spoiled units. Tama ba? Sorry, 10 spoiled units, 'di ba? So, the total cost of job 2009 is 30,000, 'di ba? So, sige, para mas malinaw, we'll start with the journal entries first. Okay? So, sometimes I find it easier if to prepare the journal entries na lang and then later on, proceed with the computation based on the journal entries. Okay? So, the first thing we're going to do whenever you have spoiled units, diba, is to remove the cost, set up a separate inventory account for the spoiled goods inventory. Nakahiwalay siya, no? So, ang mangyayari nito, we have to debit spoiled goods inventory, which is equal to the net realizable value of the spoiled goods. Okay? So, since we have 10 spoiled units and then these spoiled units can be sold for 30 pesos each according to the problem. So, 10 times 30, we have 300. Okay? Now, since it is the company's fault, diba, we have to remove from the work in process inventory account of job 2009 the total cost of the spoiled goods, 'di ba? So sige, to compute for the total cost, for the cost per unit pala muna. We have to compute for the cost per unit of each workbench, 'di ba? So we have total cost which is 30,000 divided by 200 workbenches will get 150, 'di ba? Ito yung cost per good unit natin. Now, so since again, paulit-ulit na lang, it is not the customer's fault. So ang mangyayari ngayon dito is that we are going to remove the total cost of the spoiled goods from the work in process inventory account of the customer of job 2009. So we have 150 each multiplied by 10. We have 1,500. Okay, 150 each multiplied by 10 spoiled units, so 1,500. So if you will notice, our journal entry is not yet equal, di ba? Or yung debit and credit side natin is not yet balanced. And therefore, we have to debit factory overhead control or yung actual overhead natin, di ba? We will record the difference between the total cost of the spoiled units and the net realizable value of the spoiled units will be, ano nangyari? Mali. Yan. Ulit. So, the difference between the total cost of the spoiled units and the net realizable value of the spoiled units will be charged to factory overhead control as actual overhead. Okay? So by doing this, what will happen to the work in process inventory account of job 2009, diba? So ang mangyayari dito, we have to deduct the cost of spoiled inventory. Diba? So we have a total of 1,500. So the new total cost of job 2009 is now equal to 28,500. Okay? So, tiyatanong tayo for number 1, what is the total cost of the good units delivered to the customer? We have 28,500. So, another way to compute for this, basically, you will multiply 150 cost per good unit multiplied by the 190 units that the customer agreed to receive instead of 200 units. So you will also get 28,500. Notice that the total cost of the job 2009 was not affected by the spoiled units. Again, it is not the customer's fault. It is the company's fault, and therefore, the loss of 1,200 is charged to the factory overhead control account. Okay? Now, for the next question, for how much was the customer billed? So just like our example earlier, diba, we bill the customer at 130% of cost. So we have markup, which is at 1.3. So to compute, we have billed price of 28,500 multiplied by 1.3, and um, we'll get 37,050. So this is the build price for problem 3, assumption A. Okay, so there. Next, what if the defective units were the result of a change in design specification by the customer? Diba? So we are still answering problem 3, but this time, diba, exacting specifications naman yung naging reason for the um, spoiled units. Okay? So, if the spoiled units is because of the sorry, if the spoiled units is because is due to default of the customer, di ba? So what will happen is basically, syempre we have total cost of job 2009, that is 30,000. So para mas madali, again, prepare the journal entries, di ba? So sige, um, we will debit the spoiled goods inventory. Sorry. We will debit the spoiled goods inventory at still at net realizable value. Diba? So the net realizable value naman is the same at 300 computed as 30 multiplied by 10. Diba? Now, what we did earlier is that we have computed for the cost per good unit of job 2009. This time, there's no need to do that. Since it is the customer's fault, diba? Um, we will just remove the net realizable value of the spoiled goods inventory from the work in process account of job number 2009, 300. So, equal lang. Earlier, di ba, in this entry kasi, ang ginawa natin is that we have computed for the balancing figure. Hinanap pa natin yung balancing figure natin kasi nga, hindi pa balance yung journal entry natin. But, if it is the customer's fault, di ba, kung ano yung net realizable value nung spoiled goods inventory, yun lang din yung tatanggalin mo from the work in process inventory account. So, by doing that, diba? So, dito, palitan natin to kasi hindi mo nga tinanggal yung cost. Ang ginlagay mo yung NRV, ang tinanggal natin, diba? So, we have 300. Sorry, ang ginawa ko? Tama naman, binawas ko kanina. So, ito, the total cost of job 2009 after removing the NRV of the spoiled goods inventory is now at 29,700. Diba? So, yung markup natin did not change. It is still at 1.3. And therefore, 29,700 multiplied by 1.3, the build price is now higher, which is now equal to 38,610. So, in the journal entry, parang hindi mo siya mapapansin agad na nasa-shoulder nung customer yung loss. But when you compute for the total cost of the job, 'di ba? Since you have deducted a smaller amount from the total cost of job 2009, 'di ba? The total cost is now higher as compared to our total cost earlier. Kanina, ang total cost lang niya 28,500. But now, the total cost is now at 29,700. So, if you get the difference between the two, yun yung 1,200 na kanina we have charged to the factory overhead control account. Okay? So, as a result, since the total cost is higher, the build price will also be higher, diba? Kasi nga, cost plus yung kontrata. Now, we have already answered number 2. But for number 1, tinatanong tayo, what is the cost per good unit delivered to the customer? So, if you want to compute for the cost per good unit delivered to the customer, so we'll get 29,700 and divide this by 190. So this time, only 190 units will be delivered to the customer. Kasi nga, yung 10, you will sell it as a scrap na lang. Parang, bebenta mo na lang siya for 30 pesos, which is a price lower than the original cost of the units, di ba? So, ganun ang nangyayari. So, yun yung difference between spoiled units at saka defective. Ang spoiled, hindi mo na siya madedeliver talaga dun sa intended customer kasi nga hindi siya naka-conform sa standard. But the defective units, after the rework, maide-deliver pa rin siya sa customer. And therefore, our uh, uh, our answer for assumption B, question number 1 is 156,000. 156.32. Diba? So, kanina magkano yung cost per good unit natin? Kanina 150 lang siya. But because of the losses or spoilage na shinolder ng customer, the cost per good unit is now at 156.32.